Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I'm Dana White. I blog over at aslobcomesclean.com. That's where I share my personal deslobification process as I figure out ways to keep my own home under control. I share the truth about cleaning and organizing strategies that actually work in real life for real people, people who don't necessarily love cleaning and organizing. Thanks for joining me today. My subject for today is dealing with the aftermath of sickness. This was a reader question. This is podcast number 123. But before I get to that, a couple of things. I want to read you a 5-star review on Goodreads.com of my book, How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind, which is available wherever books are sold in any format in which books are sold, meaning paperback or audio or e-reader. Yeah. Kindle book, Kindle, Nook, all that kind of stuff, iBooks. All right. So I love this review so much. Did I ever think I'd read a housekeeping book and enjoy it? Nope. But here it is. This is a book written for me, for my blinders to the daily mess. Short and sweet. But the thing I love about that one is that, that was my point in the book. Was I wanted it to be an actually enjoyable book to read. So if you've been thinking, okay, but who really wants to read a book about housekeeping? It's actually fun to read. That's what I keep getting told by people. So, that like they can't believe that they're sitting down and reading an entire book on housekeeping in one day because they can't put it down. So yay, that was my goal. Okay, but one of the things I want to make sure you know, if you are listening to this podcast as it comes out on March 1st, 2017, the e-reader or the ebook version of How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind on March 1st and 2nd of 2017, 48 hours only, is on sale for $1.99. So if you do not have it yet, you need to go get it. Okay. You need to get it for $1.99. There's another review on Amazon of someone saying, because I think the publisher this is all the publisher that does this kind of stuff, but they put it on sale, I think on January 2nd for $1.99. And she said, I bought this when it was on sale, but I would totally have paid full price and more for what she got out of it. So anyway, go get it if you don't have it. The other thing you can do as well is use this as an excuse. Maybe if you've casually mentioned the book to someone that you know who maybe really needs it, but it's kind of an awkward subject to recommend to someone else. The $1.99 thing is a great reason and excuse to be like, hey, remember I've told y'all about this book. So I would love it if you would share it anywhere and everywhere with anyone and everyone on March 2nd and 1st of 2017. Share it anytime, but the sale itself of $1.99 for Kindle, Nook, iBook, whatever, any place that it's an ebook in digital form is $1.99 on those 2 days in the U.S. And I'm so sorry. I actually did ask the publisher, is this the U.S. only? And it is. I'm so sorry, but it is what it is. So make sure you get it. You can also actually gift an ebook to someone. Did you know that? It's one of the options on various platforms. I know for sure on Amazon you can do it, and I'm pretty sure you can do it on other platforms as well. Like if you just have their email, you can actually gift them the book. Okay. All right. So we're talking about dealing with sickness. This is flu season. Now, I got this question from one of you, and I always greatly appreciate questions. I tell y'all that a lot. Because they help give me ideas for podcasts and podcast subjects. I love this one. I'm not sure. I had marked it as a podcast idea in my email, and for some reason hadn't looked at it again. I don't really know why. Anyway, because it was on October 24th, I think, that you sent it to me. One of you did. And in it, anyway, let me read it. Okay. I recently found your blog and podcast, and I've really enjoyed the practicality of your tips and your down-to-earth approach to organizing and cleaning. Thank you. I do have a question for you per recent necessity. Our whole entire family recently got sick, pretty much all at the same time, myself included. This led to days upon days of virtually no chores or daily tasks being done, except perhaps loading the dishwasher with the kids' bottles and sippy cups. Now we're on the mend, and I'm looking around at the huge mess that is the aftermath. Now that we're in flu season, do you have any tips for how to stay afloat on housework when you're sick? Also, what are the best ways of catching up on the aftermath after sick-ageddon? Thanks for considering my question. Okay, I really appreciate the question. So, I'm so sorry you were sick, and I'm so sorry I'm just not answering this question. And it's funny because you said now that we're in flu season, but this last couple weeks where I am has been flu craziness. I mean, of course, it's one of those years where everybody who got the flu shot they're the ones who are sick, but because don't they say that every single year? Like, oh, well, it's a different kind of flu than what the flu shot covered. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And we're not talking about flu shots because, oh my word, that gets people's undies all up in a wad. Anyway, but the flu season is here. It's a reality. It has been hitting all these different people that I know. The first thing I want to say is survival mode is not necessarily a bad thing. I think sometimes survival mode gets a bad rap by people like, oh, well, I don't want to live in survival mode. And you're like, well, but what's the alternative to surviving? Not surviving. So I think I'd rather survive, right? No, I don't want to live a lifestyle that's a constant survival mode. However, it's a really good thing to get into in times like this. And, I have seen, because it's true. I mean, honestly, if we're just going to look at things, whether it's true or not, I have seen a lot of things that their answer to this question is just, well, you have to do it. You have to keep cleaning your kitchen, and you have to keep doing the basics even when you're sick and feel like you're going to die in bed. Okay. That is so true. And yes, yes, absolutely. But it's pretty much not going to happen when you feel that bad. Maybe it will for some people, those same people who can't sleep because their dishes in the sink. Yay for them. I'm the one who sleeps perfectly fine when my dishes and my countertops are piled with dirty dishes because I don't even remember they're in there. That's just not part of my awareness when I'm not in that room. And so it's a great thought that yes, you should keep doing everything, but it may or may not happen. And so we're dealing with the reality of the fact that it may or may not have happened. And that, so the short answer is do what you can. I talk about awkward pauses being the time in your day where you go, okay, I've got the time to do something and I feel like I should be doing something, but what should I do? And I used to just look around my house and go, I feel like I should be doing something, but it's all so overwhelming. And I've really got to have 5 straight days with no interruptions to make any kind of a difference in here. Well, instead, I've realized the amazing, shocking impact of daily habits, more than I ever thought they could ever impact anything. And have realized, okay, when I feel that, when that awkward pause happens, that 5 minutes sometimes, 2 minutes, occasionally 15, 20 minutes where I'm like, okay, I've got a little pause here. What do I do? I know what to do in the order and in the order in which to do those things. Meaning, when I feel that feeling, I do the dishes. Okay. And I loved it because I got feedback on that particular podcast from someone who suffers from chronic illness and chronic pain. And her point was, yes, the awkward pauses are my moments of energy. Okay. That this is my moment of energy. I'm feeling okay right now. And for her, she said it was very helpful for her to, oh my word. Let me hope I can start talking better in this podcast. She said it was very helpful for her to know those 4 basic habits, the 4 basic habits that are in how to manage your home without losing your mind. Okay. But the first one is doing your dishes. And that, what that means is knowing that that's the most important one, finding that moment of energy for her during her chronic illness, her chronic pain, finding those moments where she has the focus and she has the stamina to do that. She does that. So same thing with being sick. Okay. There are times, I remember a couple of years ago is when my kids were still playing baseball. So it's been a couple of years, but there's 5 of us. We came home. My husband had to leave the game early. He was sick, and it hit 4 of us in the middle of the night. And it was so bad. It was a stomach virus. That's all I will say. I won't go into more details, but that hit us really, really hard, 4 of us, to the point where my daughter, who was the only one who did not get sick, did not go to school the next day either. My husband stayed home from work. My boys were, staying home from school. She could have gone to school because she was not sick, but it was like so bad. We couldn't even drive her to school. And I didn't even have the strength or the presence of mind to send a text message to a friend and say, can you please pick up my daughter and take her to school? We're all dying over here. It was that bad. And so there are times of sickness where it's just not going to happen. And it is going to all just go crazy or whatever. And you're not going to be able to get anything done. But the flu is one of those things where it's several days sometimes, or, sometimes when you just feel horrible. And here I'm going to tell you that I was sick. It's maybe been a month ago. I don't know. But I was sick, and I had to make this conscious decision because I'm one of those people who tends to push through. And this was one of those sicknesses where I could have pushed through, and I wasn't completely, laid out from it. But I made this decision. I'm going to rest this time, because I never let myself do that if there's any possible way that I could push through. So this time I'm going to let myself rest. And I took a nap in the middle of the day and just gave myself permission to not freak out about, keeping going with whatever it was. And I actually got better a whole lot quicker than I usually do. Okay. So there's that value in rest. But in those time periods where, sometimes you are not feeling well and it's like, well, I wake up in the morning and I feel okay. Do you ever have that where you're sick, but you're like, well, I usually feel better kind of between 10 and 11 a.m. It's kind of like I got up, I'm rested, I kind of take it easy. And then I kind of have this little burst of energy and then it's gone and I'm back to being, those little moments that happen. Those are the awkward pauses. And so in those moments, if it's possible, if you have a moment, go in order of the habits that have the most impact. Number 1 being do the dishes, which most likely won't mean a perfectly clean kitchen. It's just going to mean doing the dishes, meaning if you're hand washing, doing 1 sink full or one like dryer, whatever you use. I can't think of the word right now. Dish drainer, or, one of those little, whatever we have that soaks up the water pad things. 1 thing worth of hand wash dishes, or fill up the dishwasher imperfectly and run it. That kind of, it's like, if this is all I can do, that is what I should do. And that's the thing too, with the doing the dishes. One of the reasons I say do the dishes instead of clean the kitchen is that even if I don't have the energy or the time to quote unquote clean the kitchen, meaning make sure everything's perfect and everything's wiped down, if I will just do the dishes, meaning if I will just load my dishwasher and run it, it's like my catching up process later on is infinitely simpler and more likely to actually happen if I will just have done the very basic thing of running the dishwasher. Okay. When I'm without a dishwasher, which I have a post on that. Y'all have heard that, right? The 5 truths about a clean kitchen, even if you don't have a dishwasher. And anyway, that if I do, if I will just do the dishes even without doing everything else. And so, that's that problem of our type of mentality, is to think, oh, well, what's the point of doing that? Because I don't really have time to clean the kitchen. Sometimes I will do that and I'll just keep on going. And I'm like, oh, wow, I did end up getting the kitchen done. But even if I don't, it's still worth it to do the dishes, that one thing. And so identifying those most impactful basic habits to do, and making that, the thing that you do in those moments where you actually have a little bit of energy. The other thing that it will just change everything for you is the 5-minute pickup. That's one of those 4 basic habits that I have, and maybe when you're sick, you make it a 1-minute pickup, a 60-second pickup. Or maybe I know sometimes when I get a major head cold, I can't bend over to pick something up off the floor. So give yourself permission to say, well, I'm going to do a 60-second, just walk through the house and pick up dishes and, whatever, because people have been sitting and, trying to drink all the fluids that I've been giving them, and they're sitting on the side tables and things like that. Just giving yourself that. Anytime you can do just something, it's amazing the impact that will have. But what about when that's not even possible? I mean, what if it's just never going to happen, and you're not going to get any of that done in the midst of the sickness? Well, when the sickness is over, you go back to the same thing. You go back to the same issues. Why did I just say issues? You go back to the same strategy of starting with doing the dishes. And if all you have time to do is do the dishes, great. And then sweep the kitchen, not just because of the crumbs, but also because of the slob vision of, identifying, oh, there's things on the floor here. And then that makes it look so much better. And then, 5-minute pickup, and then checking the bathrooms for clutter. And here's another thing too. So that's the basics of how do you get through that. Now, other things to remember are, things that are specific to sickness, things that you need to remember. And this is where green cleaning is fantastic and wonderful, but when we've had some sort of plague in our home, I want something powerful. I'll just say it. Okay. That's the time where I want to pull out I've used Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes or whatever. That's when I am so grateful to have those, because they just make life easier, which means that I don't have to go through the energy of mixing anything or putting anything together or whatever, or thinking at all. I just grab the wipes and I use them. So what are some things that you need to focus on in the midst of sickness, if possible, or after sickness, that are unique to that? Well, doorknobs. Okay. Going through and cleaning doorknobs, cleaning around doorknobs and door frames, anything where hands are going to touch. That's important. The remote control. If you've been watching a lot of TV, which is pretty normal for that, the remote control, your Kindle, your phone, tablets, those kinds of things. Obviously, you need to follow the directions on doing that, but focusing, as far as what's safe for the device that you're dealing with, but those things need to be cleaned. Light switches both on and off, because you flip them both ways, right? Other things, refrigerator handles, the glass, like if you have a refrigerator that has ice and water in the door, you need to disinfect the little push things, that your glass, because a lot of people are going to get a second glass of water, and that's going to be where their mouth has touched on their glass, is then going to touch the thing that you push in. This is the germaphobe in me coming out. Anything that fingers have touched. Obviously, bathrooms need to be cleaned. And just a quick wipe down during the sickness. That's one of those things that I am able to bring myself to do in the midst of sickness is wipe down, all the things in the bathroom. But wiping down the faucets themselves, changing out the towels that have been used in there, the hand towels, in case any, because I know people in my family who, they will, wash their hands and then wipe their face on the towel, or whatever. Or maybe they didn't wash their hands as well as I wish they would have, so those things need to be changed out. The handle on the toilet, the flush handle thingy, majigger, whatever. The toilet itself, those things all need to be done. To me, those are the things that end up usually being cleaner after sickness because I'm doing them constantly to try to keep from, whatever. If you are doing extra laundry during a sickness, obviously after a sickness, bedding needs to be washed. Anything that has been, I just had a friend tell me her daughter had the flu and she's like, her husband just got it. And she goes, and I feel kind of bad because her daughter had been hanging out in their bed on his side and then he got it. But washing the bedding, disinfecting the lamps, the lamp doolally, flip switch thingy. I am awesome today. Next on the bedside lamps, that you've maybe used during this time. For me, my Kindle, did I already say that? But all of those things, are things to consider and think about that need to be cleaned after sickness. But, if you're going to go, okay, I'm trying to recover from our sickness is over, then, thinking about starting with the basic habits before you do any big major overhaul of things, starting with the basic habits and then with any extra time or energy that you have, then go focus on the bathroom and getting it thoroughly clean top to bottom. I have a podcast where I talk you through a very thorough clean of the bathroom. I will link to that in the show notes for this podcast, number 123. But I also have a printable list that you can use of that, if that would help you. The kitchen is another area, where people have been eating and drinking, which means saliva and germs and all that wonderfulness is in there. So that's another area to really, really focus on. I often find that I'm a little more caught up on laundry than usual after a stomach illness. And this is partly my germophobia paranoia, but because I am running more loads, I'll often stick something in there unless it's completely gross and nasty. But I'll stick, extra things in there and I'm just running more loads. Other things to consider is, disinfecting the outside and kind of the rim of your washing machine. And the controls on that. If you've been doing, if you've been running those types of loads where sickness is touching the rim of your washing machine that doesn't actually get, washed in that, doesn't actually have water touch it in the actual washing process, then that's something to consider going over. So all of these things are what I try to do. I'm sure I go overboard sometimes and don't think of other things that I should think of, but things to hopefully help prevent that sickness coming back and also just to kind of make me feel better after I've dealt with all that. Okay, so let me go back and read the question again and make sure I've answered everything I wanted to answer. Okay, so the huge mess. Yeah, the huge mess that's the aftermath. That honestly is the same as basically, I guess I kind of look at it and say a normal person experiences the huge aftermath of sickness. That is very similar to where I started or at least in feeling, is very similar to where I started in this whole process, of deslobification. But for me, back when the house was a complete disaster, then to have sickness on top of that just made it that much more overwhelming. So kind of, breaking it down and just saying those 4 basic habits: do the dishes first, sweep the kitchen, Do a 5-minute pickup, check the bathrooms for clutter, and then go about, doing the other, the bigger stuff, the bathroom cleaning, the laundry day, the kitchen cleaning. But another thing to consider is that when you're not sick, keeping up with the basics is what is going to carry you through these crazy, extra, out of routine times. Okay? Survival mode is going to happen and you're going to need to survive. But keeping up with the basics of the kitchen, basically almost always, if not always, almost always is pretty much under control, even if it's not perfect. Doing 5-minute pickups on a daily basis so there isn't a huge buildup of clutter in your general living areas. Sweeping the kitchen floor so that if something happens, then you don't have to also deal with all the clutter that's been building up there forever before you, let's say something floods in the kitchen or whatever, you break a glass or anything. I mean, this is obviously not sickness I'm talking about, but emergencies that happen in life, random, obnoxious things. Those things are so much easier to deal with when you're only dealing with the broken glass, because you've been keeping up with sweeping the kitchen and therefore keeping it clear of, random plastic bags from last week's groceries or, piles of newspapers or whatever other random things end up on the kitchen floor. If I can deal with those things daily through daily habits, then I am not stuck in this bizarre situation of that, broken glass sending me completely over the edge. Where the same way with sickness, if I am checking my bathrooms for clutter, and so they are mostly picked up, other than, there's only ever one day's worth of randomness laying around, then when sickness hits, which stomach sicknesses don't give you any warning at all, it's not usually I'm starting to feel bad, and then over 2 days it builds up to being awful. No, I mean, it's usually like, oh my word, where did this come from? And I got to get in that bathroom right now. If I've been keeping up with that daily habit of checking the bathroom for clutter, then when that sickness happens, I'm only dealing with cleaning up from that sickness. I'm not cleaning up from the sickness on top of the bathroom floor being covered in clothes. I'm just wiping down the faucet. I'm not also having to clear, whatever random products and empty bottles and containers there are laying all over the bathroom counter. So if I can keep up with the daily stuff, then when these emergency situations happen, it's so much easier to deal with, to say, okay, all I have to do here is disinfect the entire toilet, which is not fun and is annoying. But when I'm trying to do that, and then I'm also thinking, oh my goodness, I've also got to go run this load of clothes because I'm pretty sure some vomit droplets spewed over here onto these clothes that were laying on the floor in a pile next to the toilet or whatever. I mean, that kind of stuff just adds to the frantic craziness. So if I can keep up with my daily habits, then when the craziness happens, it's like, okay, yes, this isn't fun, but it's just so much easier to deal with than it was before. Okay? I hope that is helpful, and I hope this is the most irrelevant podcast you've ever heard. And what I mean by that is I really hope you don't have to go through this anytime soon. I mean, but the fact is we all go through it at some point. But I'm really hoping for all of you that you're like, oh, those are neat thoughts. I haven't really had to deal with that. Yay. But anyway, just wanted to remind you again, if you are listening to this, I know there are thousands of you who download it in those first 24 hours. So hopefully you will catch the $1.99 ebook sale so that you can get it for yourself or for others. Just Google how to gift a Nook book or how to gift a Kindle ebook or whatever. And that will tell you how to do it. So I'm assuming. I don't know. I haven't actually Googled those things. But anyway, so this was podcast number 123. And you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/book to find the links to wherever the book is sold. How to manage your home without losing your mind. All right. I will talk to you guys next week. Have a happy, healthy week. Bye.